Morning, everybody. It is 8:16 a.m. It is May 4th. Big day yesterday, FOMC, followed by PACW regional bank saying looking for potential sale of the bank, which took down the regional banks and the markets after hours. So that was pretty significant move lower after FOMC with already had a move lower. And today we got Apple reporting after the close. All right, so we got a lot of things to talk about, a lot of things to look at. Um, let's get started. Of course, my name is Steven Gonzalez. Welcome to my channel. I look at volume profile, market profile, supply and demand. Gamma levels of now a big part of what I look at, and I just use them all together in confluence to make trade setups that are have high probability. And I've been doing it for about almost 5 years, four and a half, four and change. Um, really love looking at how the market profile and volume profile just make you structure the market. It just gives you a nice structure to look at that you can't see with candlesticks. So welcome to my channel. And as always, please subscribe if you haven't already. I'm trying to grow the channel. I'd be much appreciated. Of course, you could follow me on Twitter, Gonzo719. And you could follow me on Instagram, Gonzo719 Jersey. Okay. Now we'll just put the my handles right there for the social media, and we'll get into this. Let's start with the watch list. So the VIX is alive. Okay, it's up 6.22%. Bitcoin is up 3.08%. Ether up 1.84. Silver's up 0.74. Gold is up way above 2,000. Up 0.58, 0.6. Bonds being bought. 30-year bonds. 10-year yield doesn't show up until 8:20. So I would think that this is going to go down. The dollar is basically flat. Crude is basically down slightly, 0.17. Nasdaq's down 0.26. Dow's down 0.39. ES down 0.46. And the Russell with the regional banks down 1%. Russell with those regional banks is just very weak. Okay, let's move on. So I saw something about BABA had some IPO news. The International Commerce IPO, but then they said that's not the plan. However, it is up 1.25 pre-market. Snow is up 1.22. Coin has earnings today after the close. It is up 1.15, most likely due to probably Bitcoin being up. Okay. And Tesla is up 0.71. Okay, now let's get to some laggards. Boeing, I saw, had some like problems with some jets or something like that, only down slightly. Nvidia is probably in sympathy with Qualcomm, reported lower guidance. Okay, so that's getting some sympathy from Nvidia, down 0.45. Goldman Sachs financials, that's why that is down. It's down 0.5. Okay, Apple reports after the close today. However, Qualcomm talked about their phones, which obviously is Apple, getting lower demand for forward guidance, and that is down 1.68%. They report after the close today. They're expected to miss revenues for the second quarter, but who knows? And they're expected to do some buybacks too. Could be worth 90 billion. Let's move on. Cat, no leader to speak of here. Laggards, we'll talk about JP Morgan financials, right? Disney, down 0.85. Qualcomm, there's the earnings we talked about, down 8%. 8%. Okay. Now let's move on to sectors. No leader to speak of. Let's go with the bottom three: real estate, technology. Technology's Apple, okay, and Nvidia. And then financials down 0.88, which is the weakest, which is no surprise. Being that Fed Powell said the banking's strong, and then literally right after his speech, the regional banks fell apart. So pretty ironic. Okay. Um, the only news that I wanted to talk about, trying to see here real quick before we get into it, because there wasn't much that I haven't really talked about. All right, I'll just show this. We'll really quickly go over news today because I went over a lot of what dropped already. Okay, so quick news update, which I've already given some. So here's really what I was talking about. So Qualcomm, the company, on Wednesday forecast third quarter revenue and profit below Wall Street estimates, saying the smartphone industry, which is Apple, would take longer to use up excess chips before fresh orders flow in. Shares of the chip designer fell and extended trading after it said its forecast also accounted for macroeconomic headwinds and weaker global sales of handsets. The company said a larger than normal decline in chip revenue forecast from the prior quarter was mainly due to the timing of purchases by a modem-only handset customer. Qualcomm forecast chips revenue of 6.9 billion to 7.5 billion. Qualcomm forecast total revenue 8.1 billion to 8.9 billion in the third quarter. So that's what's taken down Apple. Okay, very interesting, right? On other news, um, let's see here. I just had it up here. So it's Shopify. Okay, so Shopify beat earnings and it plans to cut its workforce by 20%. So Shopify's up big right now. Okay. Now, one other thing to note. This is for my friend Rosita. Datadog beat earnings and they are gapping up. And that's going to round out what I wanted to talk about in the news. Okay. We can get right over to the daily charts. Start out with the SPY. Okay, what I added back on my charts was anchored VWAPs. Now, just so everybody knows, I'll zoom in here. I set an anchored VWAP from yesterday's high from the FOMC. So we'll have to see how that turns out. That's right here. It's not really going to show much until we get a couple more days in. Okay. This white anchored VWAP was from the last FOMC high. So you can see how this was kind of pierced it, but it's called a holding support. It just means that the average buyer, according to the volume weighted average price, is not a moving average. This is based on, buying and volume. So it's not like a moving average. It's basically off of what people have been doing. So right here has been holding support. Okay, so we're going to see what this FOMC anchored VWAP does from this high. Okay, this kind of pinkish line, that's from the all-time highs. The yellow line's from the lows in October. So these are way down here. That just means that if you sold from the all-time highs, you're kind of underwater. The average seller is underwater, and then the average buyer is making some profits off the October lows, which is nothing rocket science there. Okay, but what did we do yesterday? Let's zoom in a little bit. Okay, so yesterday, we kind of moved up. That's that high. and then we sold off towards the end of the session, and then we went lower with the banking after hours. Okay, so pretty move up and then a move back down, right? So where are we now? We're at 406.72. So we're gapping down. We're about right, ironically, almost right on this anchored VWAP of the last FOMC. It's pretty interesting there. Okay, let's look at the Qs. Okay, so the Qs, no different really. Came down to the 20 simple day moving average, came right here, had support, right? And we closed at 317.29. Where are we at now? We're at 317. So we're gapping lower here, around almost at the lows, a little below the lows. Okay, so that's what the Qs is doing. Let's look at the Dow. So Dow came all the way down to this key support almost, right? 100-day moving average, had resistance here at the 20 and the EMA daily. Okay, so where are we now? 333, 32, 333, 32. So we're underneath this key level right here. Big, the Dow is at a very major level. Okay, if we break it, retest, you could go lower. Okay, and if you break this range, we've tried to break it once, and that's when the market made a rally. But let's see here. You could take this out. That'd be pretty interesting. Okay, let's look at the Russell, the weakest. Just very weak, very, very weak. Okay, big inverted hammer here, huge selling excess here. Okay, it came all the way up to the 20 simple moving average, found resistance, right? Now, where is that now? We're at 171. We're right here, kind of at a key support level of 171, right below this 171.23. So let's get this whole range in here. So we have this range here, and this has been support. Okay, so we're around right below this level. You know, see if you can take out this swing low here. That would be pretty interesting. Maybe we move down to 167. Not saying that happens today, but this regional banking is not in good situation. Okay, so that's where we stand with the indexes. Now let's look at the 10-year yield, which is down about 1%. Let's look at the triple-headed monster. All right, so you see, well, we're down here from yesterday, right? I mean, they're rising from now, but we're down. These need to start rising back up here. Okay, bonds need to get into the game if we're going to move lower, but you need bonds to start yields rising in order to see further weakness in the market. So right now, bonds are still undecided. Okay, the VIX came alive yesterday. Look at this from these lows of 1553. We're currently at 1937, so we're above the 17.93 level, right? And the next thing is, can we break 20? That would put further pressure on the markets to go lower. So it's a big rise in the VIX. Say over 20, look for further movement down. And then the dollar, we got this doji world going on here, and it's rising as we speak. You can see it rising. Okay, so just in this land of 102 to like 101, keep just, are we going to push out of this, or are we going to go lower? So we have a big support here about 100. Can it fall? I'm not sure. You can see this more clearly on weeklies, or maybe even monthlies. Right here, that support I talk about is the 182 level. Okay, have to see if we can break that. Does it hold or does it break, right? That's really the question. All right, now we can get into market profile and volume profile. Just give me a sec while I do that. All right, so let's look at where we're at here. Let me just get my marker up. All right, first we're going to look at the profile, right? So had a distribution here, another distribution here, and another distribution here, followed by some excess. Okay, so that's triple distribution. Pretty wacky, multiple distributions in a profile, not very clean looking, right? So, but however, let's look at the monthly profile, which is right here, the last 30 days. It is very balanced. Okay, so over the last month, we're just balanced. So, what needs to happen, right? We're right in the middle. Now check out all these levels. Now we have a cluster of levels to go off of. Okay, a cluster of levels. Right here is everything. What do we have there? The most traded price of the month, and now of the year. So 41, 48, 40, call it 41.50. Okay, 41.50 is now the most traded price of this year and of the month. So huge level, right? Most traded price is about 41.38, 41.40 of the week. So just this area has all of these levels here. So currently, what you want to see is if we can stay below this, that's bearish. You go above it, it's bullish. Okay, we stay below this level, then we could be doing something here. If, now this is how the market has to work, right? If price, which is down here, can move this most traded price of the week down here and build out some value here, that could potentially make us move lower. If it can't, price is going to return back, because value has to follow price. If value can't follow price, price goes back up to value. Okay, that's how that auction works. That's how a volume profile works. Okay, now we're going to look at where we're at now. So we're here. Price is right here, 40.96. We have yesterday's high, yesterday's low. Okay, we have overnight highs, overnight lows. We are gapping down about 8 points right now of a gap. Okay, now let's look at, we're gapping lower. What else do we have? We have our single prints. This is when emotional buying, selling, saying yesterday came in. So boom, We pushed right down and we held down here from that selling. Okay. Now notice, which is very interesting, that the overnight high is where the single prints ended. Pretty interesting, okay? So that was the high of the overnight, right up against those single prints. Okay. So you can see the volume right here is very thin. So this is the key right here. It doesn't mean we just clean them. You have to use this as a gauge. So basically, I think if we come back in, there's a supply here now. If we come back into here and we can't clean those singles, and you start getting, some resistance, well, I think we go lower. Okay, that's kind of a telltale what we do with those singles. Okay, so since we're gapping, of course, I got to talk about the gap rules, right? So here's our gap. That's the gap fill. So anybody who's been watching for a little bit, you know the story. We'll go over them really quickly. The most bearish is a gap and go. So if we open here and we just go, that's the most bearish, right? We could open up and fail to fill the gap. That's the second most bearish. The third most bearish is open, fill the gap, right? That's how we can tell what the market's going to do, the strength of the sellers, right? So if we fill the gap, start going into the range of yesterday, well, then selling is not as strong. That's just a gauge. Let the market tell you how weak or how strong we are. Okay. Okay. So gaps, this is not a huge gap, and it could change obviously when the market opens. So a couple things here we have to note. So I have to look at the short side here for right now, just because of where we're at in relation to these big levels. Okay. So let's talk about a plan. Okay. So let's go for the shorts. Now, one thing I didn't talk about is the 50% of this move. Always got to talk about that when big moves happen. So 41.36 is the 50% retracement of yesterday. Just so happens to line up with all these big levels. So that's a level to watch, 41.36, okay? Okay, so obvious trade, okay, is this. We could even push down whatever. If we come back into this supply, and this supply almost lines up with the gap fill, but let's just say it's a gap or a little bit into the supply, when we start getting weak, right? We start getting weak, I think we go lower, okay? And you want to target the overnight lows, 40.76. There's also demand starting here, and you also have the 50-day simple moving average. I don't know how much lower you get because you had a big move yesterday, okay? But that is definitely what's going to be on a lot of people's radars. You hit yesterday's low. There's supply here. We're underneath the levels. That could possibly work, right? Now, another thing I forgot to mention is we are close to 100% net short overnight. So here's the open. All we had was this long. Everyone is short. It's not as important now because we're off the lows. We're right at the middle of the session. We're at half back. They call it half back. We're right at the midpoint, so it's not in the cards to say that it's kind of imbalanced, right? There's actually a bullish imbalance But what I'm saying is we're in the middle of the session, so these sellers have taken profit already. Okay, so people who are long from here, and we're right in the middle. So it doesn't give you a lot of like thing, even though there's shorts still from here, right? So you can see longs had poor location here. The profile, you notice the profiles kind of doesn't have like excess at the top. It's kind of flat. That means that longs had poor, poor location, and then they got ripped. Okay. All right. So let's get back to the trades. I apologize for that tangent. I just wanted to point that out. Okay. So now we have our short. Okay. So the only thing that like that's the short I'd be looking at. A gap and go is hard to trade. It's hard to put risk on if you just go lower and you have a lot of supply. 50-day simple move average, I don't think that's the play. Okay, so there's no point in talking about that. All right, if you wanted to talk about another short and you wanted to just say, hey, you know what, I'm going to let the market develop, you could see this happen, right? Take this supply out, clean the single prints, all right? 90 MA dailies here, but if we go up into this monster cluster of levels and we cannot, we reject right away, you got to short that. Okay, go back to yesterday's lows and possibly see how far we can go. Okay, so that's why I'm short biased today. Okay, the market needs to prove to me to get long. What's going to make me go long, right? And I don't know if that's in the cards today, but we got to talk about it. So if we do make a move, right, one to two things longs are going to happen. Okay, obviously you have demand down here and you have the 50-day simple move average. So first, if we do gap and go, we could possibly come down here, tag this. Sellers try to make a move lower, and then buyers, they run out of steam and get some higher lows. You definitely want to go along here and most likely tag the most traded price of the day, which I don't know what that would be right now. That'd probably be your first target, and then go for, yesterday's low. That's one long. Okay. That's something that, is more appetizing because, you make the move lower, lower, lower. People take profits, right? You're in some key levels here. That's one, right? The only other thing I can see is, you know, if you wanted to be a little aggressive, you could wait for this supply to break, and then we hold up here, and we're in the single prints, and you take the single prints and you target these big levels, right? I wouldn't say that's the highest quality setup, right? I'd like the lows better than I would like that. However, if you really want to be conservative with a long, you'd want to break this supply, clean the singles, go above these big levels and hold, 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 make some higher lows, and then you can start targeting yesterday's highs and go up here. I don't know if that happens. Okay. We have Apple earnings today too. So that's what I'm kind of looking at. But obviously the short side in mind, and of course you just got to feel the market how it opens. Okay. Let's go to the NASDAQ. Okay, first thing, let's look at that weekly profile. Distribution here, and then some excess. Okay. So still some value up here in the upper portion. Okay. Now the monthly 30 days profile is right here. And that's more balanced. Okay. Now, key levels. We have the most traded price of the month is here, 131. We have the most traded price of the week right here. That is 132. Okay, price is right here. So this is just a cluster. Inside of here is not where you want to be trading. That's just going to be Chop City. You're in between two huge levels. Okay. Not saying an individual stock can't do something, but it's just really going to be very murky in here. Okay. So now let's look at where we're at, right? So price is here, overnight low, overnight high, yesterday's high, yesterday's low, right? So it's a small gap. Now remember, NASDAQ doesn't have financials really, so that weakness is not going to show up in NASDAQ as much. Okay? So now, notice the profile too, right? And we're not 100% net short or nothing like that in the NASDAQ. So this profile is pretty balanced in the overnight. Okay? So, it's basically, slightly down with a little gap. So the gap is almost not there. It might not even exist when we open. Okay, we do have single prints right here. The overnight doesn't matter. Now, just to be clear, single prints only matter in the real-time trading session. So even though the overnight came up and would clean the single, that doesn't count. It only counts when the real-time trading hours happen. Okay. All right. So this is a little harder of a trade here. I'm not really ecstatic about the NASDAQ, the way it's setting up. Okay. Now, I'm going to bring this up so you guys can see below, and maybe do this just so you get a better view. All right. So let's talk about a trade plan for the NASDAQ. Yeah, we and I talked about shop earlier on about the news. Not sure if you probably weren't logged in yet or are watching yet. Um, what else? All right, let's get into the plan, right? So this is very hard here. Now, it's not the best setup. I really don't like it. Okay, just we'll talk about the shorts. Now, we have our big levels, all right? We have our big level of the most traded price of the month. Now, I'm sorry. There's one more. This is also the most traded price of this year is right here. Most traded price of the week is right here. Okay, you got monthly VWAP right here. So you got a lot of stuff above us. We have 9 EMA daily, the 20 simple moving average. So there's a lot above, okay? However, I have to play off, I'm going to play off of these levels, the 9 EMA daily, 20 simple moving average on the daily. And you have this big monthly most traded price of the last month. Okay, and we're right under it. So what I'm going to look at is how do we react with these levels. Okay, we could open up, and again, these single prints are going to tell a lot of things. Okay, we can open up, and there's a supply right here. So I could see us cleaning out some singles, but then if it hits this supply, you start getting some lower highs in here, right? We could go here, you target here, or you could target yesterday's lows right here, and then you go to overnight low, and can we bring us down to this demand zone? Possibly. Also, this big level here, right? You can also see something like this, and then this, right? You short that, and these 9 EMA dailies, 20 simple moving average, they can also act as resistance. So there's multiple things that could act as resistance. I'm not in love with it though, right? But just basically in here and you reject through here, you're probably going to short that. Okay. Like I said, I don't love it. And about the long, all right, longs would be, all right, we come down here and we come right down in here into these demand zones. Kind of get an exhausted thing. Maybe you get a long back up into the developing POC, and then you can target here. That's just after exhaustion if that happens. Like I said, I don't love it, right? I don't love it. The only other thing is if we open and we start holding above this level, push through these moving averages, have to see what I mean, have to break this supply, have to break the most traded price of the year, the most traded price of the week and yesterday, then you got monthly VWAP, and then can we go there? I mean, that's very highly unlikely. It could happen, but I think that's very highly unlikely. That's why I'm looking at the short, but I don't love that either, right? So that's about it for that. I don't really love those setups. Okay, just to show you guys where we're at in relation to why I'm saying the most traded price of the year. Here's the chart that shows weeklies in the blue. The outlines here are monthlies. Okay, orange is, a year ago. The white profile is this year. Okay, and 4-hour candles. So I can really quickly look at what we did each month. Right, so this is a monthly low, and this month's low. Right, I can see what we did each week. Okay, so last week had a low, and now this is this week's low. Almost equal, right? All right, however, this is the most traded price now of this year, which is 41.54. Okay, so you can just see the balance here, and we're below it, right? So that's got to be bearish. Well, here's the most traded price of the rolling year, which is 40.23. So if we have some weakness, I would expect us to go here, 40.23. Okay, let's look at the Nasdaq. Similar situation, right? Just stronger though than the ES, not as weak. So again, this is now the most traded price of this year, 131.83. Okay, price is right here. So we're still kind of in this balance. Remember, it doesn't have financials. Okay, so the most traded price of the rolling year is all the way down here, and that is 122.28. We're a ways away from that, but the next big node, high volume node, is right here. And what is that? If we go lower, that is around 126.50. That's where I would expect us to go. I mean, probably first down to this monthly low here, 127.97. So if we do go lower, I expect to go here, then here. And if we really get weak, eventually we go all the way down here. You can just see this heavy price action in this level. Okay, so big moves coming. Apple, I think, will have a lot to do with it. They're not expecting great revenue. So, but who knows? All right. All right, everybody. So, hope everybody understands our plans. Like I said, the Qs are very murky. Doesn't have financials in the Qs, so it's very murky. So that's going to be a little harder one for me to look at. I am looking at the Russell with the regional banks. So I am looking at that to see if there's possibly some kind of pullback up into a key level to short. Have to look at that, right? But the ES has a little better of a setup. Okay, looking at that. So again, trying to build a channel. Thank you everybody for watching, and subscribe, set an alert if you can. Of course, give me a like. That'd be much appreciated. Of course, you got my Twitter and my Instagram. I'm gonna continue doing a mid update in the midday. I think it's good for me. It's good for you guys to see what I'm looking at. I did that yesterday. Hope you guys liked it. Um, and everybody stay patient today. Okay, we got Apple after the close. Um, this market just keeps, it's just nuts, right? And yesterday I didn't even take a trade, so I didn't take a trade. I mean, I put a video out about that the Amazon long, but again, just like I told you guys, I wasn't crazy about the news that was coming out. Today's the first day we don't have to worry about any news at 9:45 or 10 a.m. It's the first day, so you're open to trade a day trade. Without having to worry about something coming out, right, and screwing up your trade. So that'd be it for me. Of course, we'll be watching Apple after close, and I wish everybody good luck today. Stay green, and be look out for my video midday. All right. Have a great day, everybody.